How Azrya and I met, how you and I met. So I opened my heart. I got really vulnerable. I sent you this voice note.
5 voice notes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I was waiting for a response. I was nervous. And then I get a thumb up emoji.
The worst.
That was it. It was like literally how I saw you, Jenny. Bless your light. And I remember I got on an airplane right when I received that response. And I turned to my partner at the time and I was like, she just sent me a thumbs up emoji. And he was like, well, you did send a lot of voice notes. And I was like, oh. Anyway, when I arrived, then I got another message from you that came in after the flight. And I was like, I have no idea how I sent you a thumbs up emoticon. But thank you so much for this beautiful voice note and sending you love. Our whole relationship has been nothing short of expansion. And, you know, I know it's a charged word, but magical. And how we met was first and foremost through a vision that I had. I don't get visions very often. I don't know, like, being guided all the time through these visions and then I'm supposed to connect with this person. So I just want to give context that it's not just something that happens on the daily. It's a pretty profound miracle that had happened in my life. And I was out in Costa Rica sitting in a ceremony, an ayahuasca ceremony. And I was shown a vision in that ceremony of you and I standing on the top of a mountain. And you had a shaved head, or like very short hair at the time. And we were laughing hysterically at the whole cosmic joke of being human almost. Like it was like this deep belly, giggly laughter, just a lightheartedness and a lightness being infused into our moment. Because of course life can be quite intense and quite serious. And so this was a very signature moment where it was just so much lightness. The vision actually ended up manifesting, and we were in a ceremony on top of a mountain in a teepee, and I remember walking out of the teepee and you were standing on the side of the mountain and we stood next to each other overlooking the whole view, and we turned to each other and just laughed hysterically, like we were just giggling and being silly. And then in that moment, like a lightning bolt, this was the vision. This was what I was shown, and it's actually happening right now.
That was the beginning, I think, of a real sisterhood and alliance that we've formed over the years.
Shining, shimmering, splendid.
Our identities melting away, dissolving, transforming into something brand new.
Let's go back. Can we go back? I want to go back.
So Blue, I think I'm going to go a little bit bigger. I'm going to manifest a man that can fully claim me. She's like, fully claim me. I want to be claimed. I want to be ravished. It is an honor to witness this kind of love, this kind of creation, and a whole new way of doing marriage.
Just continually being like, no, I believe in you, and I know what you're capable of, and I take a stand for that. And it's such a nourishing thing to have that kind of connection with another human, but also specifically a woman that is in some ways such a mirror. We found this property in the Pacific Palisades, and it was listed at $14,000 a month originally on Zillow.
And I was like, listen, Az, it's lovely and all, right? But it's $14,000 a month. I've never made that much money over the course of the past year. As opposed to every month, and that's not even taking care of your overheads. Like, that's literally just outgoing. However, there was a level of confidence, there was a level of excitement, there was a level of belief that we can make it happen. And so being in your presence, you expanded me into allowing it to potentially be my reality. And then I remember within a very short period of time, you called me. We received the finances, we received the funds from 3 angel investors that have shown up and believe in the vision. We're gonna move in. I just kept thinking, my God, she's done it. She's actually made it happen.
What are some of the stories that you told yourself about who you were, specifically earlier on in your journey, before you really stepped into your power?
Why would anyone love you? With my hearing loss, when I was diagnosed with a hereditary hearing disorder, I spun into a world of stories, being in my early 20s, being told that I'm potentially going deaf, that there's no cure for it, and noticing significantly my desire to be in public spaces diminishing almost overnight because of my inability to be able to hear what was going on.
I started noticing that my hearing was decreasing rapidly. And I spent a family meal with my parents and my brother, and we were talking about it, and I was saying, I can't pick up on words as like I used to. And my brother actually started saying that he'd noticed the same symptoms. So we went for a hearing checkup, and I'll never forget that day for the rest of my life. Walked out of that doctor's office and he said that our results were extremely concerning. It's progressive, meaning that it's getting worse, and it's incurable.
Just feeling a sense of like hopelessness upon my path of like, I don't know what the future holds, but right now it's really devastating. What I was left with was the question of, is my presence alone enough? Without having to talk at the table, without having to show a piece of artwork, without doing some sort of performative thing to receive some external validation that you are worthy to be in this space, come on, have a seat at the table, but to actually be with, if I don't say anything because I can't hear what's going on and I just sit in silence, is my presence alone enough? And at the time the answer was no. So after spending a lot of time in isolation, that was when my inner artist got activated, because when I didn't feel any beauty in my world, I would paint and I would create beauty. Of the hearing that I do have left, I go all in. To meet people and have beautiful conversations by being fully present with them and not being distracted by multiple different things, because when I'm distracted, I can't hear anything. I have to be fully present with people. But realizing actually that everywhere you go, if you just give someone your full presence, it's the greatest gift. To be in the presence of someone that's really with you is healing medicine of its own without any words being said. It's really, it's tough to summarize what one has had to go through to get to this point. However, it's varied from traveling solo through the Himalayas and learning to meet myself amidst deep isolation and being in different cultures, through shaving my head and completely resetting the energy of the memory that is held in our hair to who we've been, from everything that we've eaten, to every conversation, to every environment that we've exposed ourselves to. It grows out of us through our nails and our hair, to actually shed all of that to create a new imprint, to working with plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle, and spending time out there, learning from ancient wisdom keepers and fifth-generation shamans that have been raised and born in this environment to speak the language of the plants and to learn the teachings of the plants, to meditation, devotional practices, biohacking, cold plunging, water fasting. I mean, the whole variety of things to actually send the energy inwards, as opposed to being distracted by all of the stimulus externally.
I very abruptly transitioned out of this little cocoon we had created at the Mother Tree, where we were living in this kind of alternate timeline, this alternate dimension. In the medicine world, from the outside, it would look like a complete hippie commune. We were barefoot and playing instruments. And amidst all of that, I met my now husband, Benjamin Bequer, and very quickly was catapulted onto a completely new timeline, which at first created separation between us, in the sense that I was immersed, all of my attention, all of my life force energy that had been on the mothership. It was time to pivot it. And I had been calling him in, and then he showed up, but I did not expect him to show up with such demands, of me and my life. So you were at a crossroads in a way, because the future of this magical land, the sanctuary that we had found and cultivated together, was really in limbo.
I had identified with the starving artist. That's a very real archetype when you're like, okay, I'm going to leave my 9-to-5 job, my safety net of receiving every 2 weeks a very consistent paycheck that goes into my account, that creates a level of safety that allows me to weave my life based off of this income. To then leaving that and being like, okay, I live an amazing life. I'm painting and I'm drawing and I'm singing and I'm broke. Broke. Always broke. So I was limited of being able to make decisions from my highest excitement or my decisions from a place of limitation. So there was a cost with leaving my structure of my work that I used to do in Hollywood, working as a production manager for event companies. And the cost was my freedom to choose. However, I lived a beautiful life, playing. However, it gets to a point where the universe, the great unknown, life, as you will recognize when one gets comfortable and one gets kind of stagnant in that comfort, and will bring around a swift change. And so my blessing in disguise was that you fell in love. And I say in disguise because at the beginning it was petrifying at the thought that you were going to leave, and then me with $400 in my bank account was going to take on a $14,000 a month rent.
I had negotiated down a little bit at that point, but yeah.
I mean, at this point, whether it's $8,000 or $20,000 didn't make any difference. It was a ton of money. And I'm like, eh. And also, love is love is love is love. And you were in love. And I was with you when you were calling in this partner. I was with you when you would speak it into existence. I was with you when we did our new moon intention ceremonies where you would write it down. And so when it showed up, who was I, out of the fear of my own comfort zone, to be the one to stop that love flowing into your life? You deserved it. With every single fiber of your being, you deserved it. And so it was about me facing off with that limited part of myself. It wasn't about trying to control the situation. And so I feel like I did the best that I could to like support you on your decision, to support you on your path, while simultaneously being in my own process. And I remember I was at the mothership, and there was a tarot deck or a oracle deck of cards that was left on the table that would not belong to either of us, and I hadn't seen them before. And I was like, okay, I'm stressing out about whether I take on this land or not. My highest excitement is that this is my dream property and I'm not done here. There's more to do. And my fear part of myself was going, abort shit, run, get out of here, go get yourself a nice $1,000 a month apartment and you'll be fine. What are you doing, you idiot? So there was these two very polarizing voices that seemed very similar to who I am, going back and forth like this ping pong match that was exhausting. And so I sat with this deck of cards and I said, all right, whatever card you show me is my message about how I'm supposed to wield these next steps moving forward. So I pulled a card, and at the time I had a whole head of white spirit locks, like a beautiful, crazy, wild hippie hairdo. Amazing. Maybe I'll bring it back one day. And I pulled the card, and it was a picture of a man, the druid, in the forest, holding a staff with all these trees around him, with white spirit locks, just like mine, but old man version. And the words on the card just said, hold the space. And that was it. And it couldn't have been more clear. And now what was left was my faith. That I am here pulling a card over a major life decision and trusting it. And I did. And I remember signing that lease. And it said, how much money do you have in your bank account to prove that you can pay this rent? And I was like, well, this is how much money I'd like to have in my bank account. and put it on the lease agreement. If I told them I had $400 in my bank account, they definitely would not have given me the lease. So it was like, and I got the lease. And then the real work began. It's like, okay, great. Now you have the lease. Here's way more responsibility on your shoulders.
You had 30 days.
I had 30 days to prove myself that miracles are real. And that 30 days was one of the most stressful months of my life, because I had to face off with all the parts of myself that did not believe in miracles, that did not believe in the benevolent reality in which we live in, that did not believe that I could make it happen, that did not believe in my own power.
You had been studying the gene keys. You were fascinated by that technology, that way of understanding reality and yourself. And you were starting to kind of think about giving readings, but there was still this big block around charging for that. And I remember just continually trying to like push you. I'm like, no, you need to double your prices. You need to triple your prices. Like, what are you doing? And you're like, I know, but I just don't.
My energy wasn't behind it.
Yeah. Can you share about that journey of like now, you know, the arc of really prosperity and how you've been able to shift a complete scarcity mindset, really, a starving artist identity into a very prosperous, magnetic, you know, creatrix, someone who can live in beautiful spaces and create beautiful content and live a very abundant lifestyle.
Because the overheads then went exponentially much bigger, and the skill set that I had been cultivating over years, there was an invitation for me to actually claim a price for what I had already created. I'm not making an offering out of thin air just because I need money, but I'm cultivating what I've already built within myself into an offering and then needing to name a price on it. So ultimately, we price ourselves at the value we think we're worth. And if my value or my sense of self-worth is low, then I'm going to price myself very low and then still be struggling to make ends meet. It was an invitation and a catalyst, you leaving the mothership, for me to claim everything that I have been studying and packing myself with in the external world. And so what I did was make an offering online on my social media that I was doing a one-on-one coaching based off of the gene keys to guide people into their own gene key chart and to be a guide for others and a mentor. Now, I'm so nervous to even put this online, let alone publicly name my price. And yet, because of the time frame that I had, that was the fuel that pushed me forward. And you said something to me once that really has stuck with me, is that rent has been one of my greatest gifts for growth. And so I saw it like that. This is a great gift for you to grow into the power that you've been cultivating, and it's ready to leave the nest. And so I made an Instagram post and I said that I'm calling in one private client, and I priced it way higher than anything I've ever priced before. And I said a really big prayer around it. I think it was $9,000 to work with me for 3 months or something. And I remember I posted it, and then there was a woman that lived in the Netherlands that she said she woke up in the middle of her sleep, in the middle of the night. And she just had this really clear hit. Oh, who's that girl I follow on social media that has the white spirit lock hair? She unfollowed me because she found me annoying or something at one point. And she got the clear guidance to go follow me again. So she went to follow me on Instagram, and the latest post she saw was this coaching. And she said she wasn't calling in coaching at the time. It wasn't something she was actively seeking, but her intuition was telling her to come work with me.
Wow.
She reaches out, sends me an email. We got on a phone call. I tell her the price with shaky voice, no questions asked. Okay, how can I wire you the money?
There it is. Wow.
I literally sat there after, I don't know, weeks of freaking out. And in 30 seconds, the majority of that month's rent had come in. I couldn't believe it, and I could believe it all in the same breath. My ability to expand what I know is possible when claiming happens. And also this part of me that was like, the audacity audacity of you! You just charged this poor woman so much money! And like that voice was still there. Yeah. And yet, hope that I can do this. Now, I would never have had that hope instilled in me if I hadn't stretched myself into the uncomfortable. I would have stayed in the same story, looping and living rent-free and happy-go-lucky, but not with the freedom to make choices based from my highest excitement. And that actually would have been an injustice towards my potential if you had stayed. And that's what actual love is not to just coddle us in our comfort, but to stretch us into our power. And that, in this circumstance, looked like you falling in love and following your heart. And it was one of the greatest catalysts ever.
And also how the podcast, I think, mirrored that growth, because the podcast was a manifestation of you continually claiming your power and shining your light, which of course the brighter you shine, the more you attract in, right? The bigger your toroidal field of giving and receiving gets. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, the podcast is an amazing parallel and reference point for the journey that I've gone through, and just the excellence of the humility of the podcast at the beginning, which was a mic that you had left at the... An abandoned microphone. It was an abandoned microphone, and I was like, I'll have that, thank you. And over time, it started to really pick up traction. And what happened was, the more I put out, the more I was receiving.
Every single moment that we have on this earth is a moment to be in love. And if we truly experience the present moment as an extension of our love, then the universe is only going to pack that back into you.
Invited people around, and I just loved the stuff. It was just a really great product, and I kind of forgot to sell it, you know.
Still, food is the most interesting and fascinating thing. And even among whatever we speak.
$200,000 in debt, me living in my car for 2.5 years, sleeping on bubble wrap.
Like I'm constantly looking for how I can open for my own growth. Like my only job is to
I think it actually might be a rainbow-colored laundry basket.
And I was like, it looks literally like a Mary Poppins bag of just the most magical thing.
And what I realized was, even if it's just one person that I'm inspiring, so if I was the source point of that inspiration that got activated, that shifted their consciousness in that moment to make a decision from a more wholesome place, I have to receive good fortune or a blessing or a good feeling based off of the place of origin in which it was rippled from.
And we're going to let it loose, and we're going to claim it in a big way today. Watching someone in their expression of higher self, you are the universe.
Different avenues that were opening up, different lanes, different doors and windows of opportunity were opening up. And so it just started a snowball effect that I had no idea the direction that it was going to go in, but in every moment completely mind blown and amazed at what it means to be a woman that is speaking her truth without a filter.
Because when we actually allow ourselves to welcome all parts of ourselves, the shadow and all, that is where we become unfuckable. And forces of unconditional love to flow through us so that we can truly become the frequency of heaven on earth in every moment, in every breath, recognizing that you came here, you are a leader of truth.
Now, as we sit on this sofa, just taking a pause after season 2, we're rolling into season 3, have over 187 hours of content online, over 1 million unique listens for the podcast, and it's organically spreading, and season 3 is just going to be even bigger and even far-reaching. And I've had my dream guests come on the podcast that I, through a series of miracles and manifestation, that have managed to come onto the podcast and have conversations with me. And I've just been sitting front row with the popcorn of my own life, being like, whoa, this is happening. And it all came from that shitty little mic in the broken down shed in my backyard, with a heart full of passion and a mind full of stories, and still doing it anyway.
Our thoughts are like a frame around our artwork. All of you are an exquisite piece of artwork. And now you take that piece of artwork and you put it in the garage behind the sofa with a blanket covered over it, covered in dust. Now it's lost all of its value. Now you take that same piece of artwork and you put it in the Getty Museum with a gold frame around it, a red tape in front of it, and you can't stand 5 feet in front of it. Now it's worth $10 million. Same piece of artwork, different frame. What story are you telling yourself around your limitation, your weakness, that Achilles heel? Because the story is the perception that creates your reality. The only way we're going to see a shift on this planet is if we take ownership of our internal reality. Self-awareness is one of the greatest gifts you could give yourself.
Compassion.
Compassion for all beings. And through my content, my intention is to create a new narrative, shifting from artificial glamour to authentic beauty. To what does it mean to be beautiful based off of how much you love, not based off of how you look. And I think that it's a narrative that is not run by the mainstream right now and is so starving for it.
So let's talk about allies. The Becoming Allies program is a manifestation of, or an aggregation of, all of the lessons, all of the teachings, all of the journey that I have been on my own, that we have been on together. And the reason that we've named it Becoming Allies is because so much of the true power that's available to us in our lives comes from the other humans that are standing by our side. This old model of like one person at the top, you know, is so outdated and it's just not working. And it's even the people who made it to the top are miserable because they're alone, because they stepped on so many other people to get there, and then they don't have anyone to share the fruits of their labor with. So to rise together, to stand shoulder to shoulder, side by side, and say, I might be 10 steps ahead on this journey, you know, of becoming fully alive. I might be 10 steps further than this person next to me, but that person has codes and gifts that I don't have that, you know, can bring me online in ways that I didn't even know that I needed to be brought online. And there's this just reciprocity, this energy exchange that can happen when we see ourselves through the lens of allyship and really recognize that on this planet right now, amidst all of the chaos and the confusion and the war and the strife and the devastation, amidst all of that, there is an alliance forming of heart-centered humans, conscious creatives, intuitive guides, people who have just felt that deep call in the depth of their soul to follow the truth of their spirit unapologetically, and to learn what that means, because it's not easy and we're not given instructions for how to do that. But when we have these mirrors and we can see each other through the eyes of another human who can see past our flaws, perceived flaws, and can just mirror the potential that is available inside of us back to us, that's when we exponentially grow. And if you have many, 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 many mirrors surrounding you, your growth exponentially increases collectively. So the kind of tagline of the Becoming Allies process is, together we magnetize. And magnetism has been a big part of this conversation, a big part of our journey with manifestation. So anything you want to share about that?
It feels so fitting that what I've created in my life through fluorescence has been a byproduct of what has been activated within me. What you're creating with the Allies program has been the very thing that you gifted me in my life that was one of the biggest catalysts of the evolution of my growth. So of course, you now have an opportunity to create this space for others to be able to go through what I experienced living with you in a structured, formatted, built out, meticulously designed curriculum that is supporting others to come into their becoming through allyship, through union, through standing in a circle, not in a triangle, not the rigidity of one at the top barking orders down at the rest of them with a very stagnant model that no one can move and everyone's stuck in their position, but standing as in a circle where there's no one above or no one behind. We are allies, and together, through focused attention and intention on a certain curriculum, will magnetize that as opposed to hustling. We align, and together we are much more powerful than we are when we're alone. And we can actually have fun, and we can celebrate, and we can sing, and we can pick each other up when we're down. And knowing that a place like the Ally program, and knowing that a endeavor like Becoming that you and B are creating, have created, brings me hope for having children one day. To know that these spaces exist brings me a deeper desire to want to pass on a future worth having.
And so this work is not about us, it is through us for the collective.
Yeah.
And that is humbling, because it's so easy to get caught up in, well, this is about me, and this is my song, and this is how I'm going to come across, or these are my words. And it's actually recognizing that we are all a voice for liberation, for love. So if a sister is healing, I'm healing. If you are healing, I am healing. Mm-hmm. And there is no separation.
I too am dedicated to healing
mm-hmm.
myself, of course, but the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see you and I see what you're doing. So an attack on you is an attack on all things that are good. It's an attack on the healing of the beings of this planet, all beings. They come for you, they come for me.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
And as we talked about before we started this interview, there is no shortage of need for safe, healing spaces in which people can come together, bring the fullness of who they are, be received with love, compassion, honest reflection, and to move through their sacred shit. Because that's really what this is about, right? It's about moving through our sacred shit and realizing it's all fertile soil for us to grow from. But if we don't have those mirrors and we don't have those safe spaces, we just get stuck in the shit and we're just looping in it. And it's exhausting and it's robbing us of our potential. So it feels so good to be continuing to weave, even though we've kind of gone off and done our own thing for a little while and cheerleaded each other from afar, to now come back together and weave and have you be also a part of the Becoming Allies program, bringing your magic through the ceremonial component, bringing ceremony online in a way that is really brand new and very different from other online courses that I've seen out in the world. And yeah, just really grateful to call you my ally, my dearest, dearest soul sister. We have so many more adventures to create together.
Just getting started, babe.
Always just getting started. We'll be 85 at Burning Man wearing tutus, riding bicycles, smoking a joint, and going, hey, babe, guess what? We're just getting started.
With my nipple just dragging on the floor a little bit. I'm like, oh, it's dusty.
It's chafing, but I like
it. Chafing, but I earned this chafe.
Oh, the sacred chafe. On that note,
I think that's the cherry.
There it is.
Sacred chafe.
Sacred chafe.